All right. So hello everyone. My name is Ayman. I'm at Ayman's Books on pretty much everywhere, all social media. I'm super excited here today to talk with Miss Katie Robert about all things Dark Olympus. We're going to be talking especially about, her latest release, Electric Idol, which I'm currently reading right now, and I'm absolutely devouring it. It is so good. Like I could just scream. I love it so much. Katie, how are we doing?
I'm really excited to be here. So I'm pumped. Totally
No, yeah.
professional and like put together. It's fine. It's great. Very excited.
Me just trying to like hide my sweat because I'm like so nervous. But no, yeah. So like in the next like 30 to 45 minutes, we're just gonna be like talking. It's gonna be a very chill chat and chill questions and such. The audience can leave questions in the comments as we talk. I'll get into them towards the end of the event. But throughout us like talking and just chatting and whatever, just leave any and all questions that you have and I'll get to them towards the end. But for those that we all know that Electric Idol released yesterday, so excited. I don't know if you guys, so I'm assuming not everybody here has their copy yet, but it is so good so far. I'm telling you guys, like it just gets better and better. I like when I read Neon Gods, I was like, because that's the first book I read from Katie, and I'm like, where has she been all my life? Like I'm out here reading all these books, and I'm just now reading something from Katie Robert, and it gave everything and more. It was like the best. I still think about it to this day. And reading Electric Idol, I'm like, yeah, like I trust her with everything that I have. She's like one of my all-time favorite authors of all time. I'm gonna stop fangirling and actually get into the questions now. But no, yeah, I just had to say my piece. But okay, let's start. Okay, so Katie, Dark Olympus blends like Greek mythology with something like modern crime families. What would you say were your key influences as to built out this type of world? Because you did a great job at it, to say the least.
It was, I mean, obviously like Greek mythology, but the it was definitely heavily influenced, and I feel like Gossip Girl imprinted on me back, like the original, obviously, and
Yeah.
like awful people doing awful things, but all gorgeous and very rich. And so like that like almost celebrity culture around like rich people was fascinating to me. And then I had wanted to write Hades and Persephone, and I knew, but I had a Hades in my villains series, and I was like, how do I have two Hades? Like, how does that even make sense? Because like there has to be two. And that's actually how I created the title system in Olympus, is because I was like, if there's always a Hades, but it's not the same Hades, and that could make sense. And then I just kind of built it out from there, which has been really great because it's a like so many of the myths have different flavors of like Apollo, for example, is sometimes really cool and sometimes the worst. And so having it be a title situation means I can pull like awful Apollo as like one character, and then less awful Apollo as a different character. And so it's been fun creatively to kind of play with those elements.
No, yeah, I definitely love the world that you've created. That sort of trope in which like, oh, just like seeing rich people like live their lives and stuff like that. It's just I love that. I eat that shit up. It's so good. Um, so like speaking of like, Hades from like Learn My Lesson and like Hades in Neon Gods, you've confirmed to fans that Hades from like Learn My Lesson is in fact the father of Dark Olympus's Hades. Are you planning any other crossovers down the line?
Possibly. I think that Olympus, or the Dark Olympus series, is going to be slightly more insular. Wow, words are fun. Just because of the nature of the conflict that's going to brew as the series continues, it's going to kind of like draw the focus away from the other series that I have running in like the same world. I would not rule it out though, because I am chaos personified, and sometimes when I draft and I'm like, this will be fun, we'll just throw this in. But yeah, it I would not rule it out at this point. But I don't have it planned, so maybe.
No, yeah. Speaking from like a reader's POV, we'd love to see it, by the way. No, but always it's up to you and your editor and everybody else on the team. Um, so like speaking of like the world and the rest of the world, Olympus is like cut off from the rest of the world. How aware would you say most people are that Olympus even exists in the first place?
um this is one of those world building things that it's like I joke that I like write the Fast and the Furious version of like romance, and that it's like, don't ask too many questions, we're just along for the ride, get in the car, we're gonna go. I would say the rest of the world is like at least somewhat aware, but because of the barrier, they're not of interest because they can't trade with them for the
Right.
most part, and they can't take over the city or anything. Um, so it's like they're kind of aware of it, but it's like, well, that's like that strange little backwards city that we don't mess with. Or at
Ah.
least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
No, yeah, and it works. No, yeah, like reading Neon Gods, I was curious. I'm like, because I think somebody like told me it's like sort of like magical realism or some ways. Like, there's a hint of something like more fantasy related within it that's like embedded into it. And I think you played it out so well. I love how it's its own separate world, but at the same time, it's not, because it has very much like, because like Instagram and stuff exist and stuff like that. So I think it ties together also well. Um,
And I would
and no,
say the
yeah.
barrier will sort of be explained at some point. I know that that's the one thing about Neon Gods that people are like, how this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, that's fair. That's super fair. Um, it will be like teased out over the next couple of books of like what it is and like what it actually is doing and stuff. So I promise it'll be sort of explained. Sort of explained.
No, yeah. Personally, love the way you're going about it. I'm the type of person that like world building goes in one ear, out the other. I'm like into the characters, and you write some of the best characters, let's be honest. And no, yeah, like I think from like your writing style, like obviously I love all the tropes that are in these books, but just the writing is just so immersive. I connect to it so well, and these characters, it's just no one's doing it out here like you, Katee. No one. Mm-mm.
Characters are like, I'm very similar in that I read a lot of fantasy, but fantasy like they have like a couple pages to grab me with a character. Otherwise, I'm like, to like make me stick around long enough to figure out the world building, because it doesn't stick. And
Right.
I think you can see that in my books. Like honestly, like I try, but it's more fascinating to like mess with characters and like play out those relationships and like the power
Right.
dynamics. And so that's where the
Yeah,
focus is.
exactly. I love stories that are centered mostly around that element. But like, speaking of like the characters, obviously love your characters. Demeter and Aphrodite are both powerful and connected women in clear oppositions to each other. Like taking their children out of the equation, what or who do you think would win in a one-on-one between battle of wits and manipulation? That was a handful, but that's the question.
Uh so I compare, and this is like my Game of Thrones like old time fandom showing through, but Aphrodite is very Cersei Lannister, and
I
Demeter's
see that.
very Olenna of Tyrell, the like,
Mhm.
and so Demeter would win every time. Like she just, Aphrodite's a little too like, she thinks she's more subtle and more smart than she is, and Demeter like will low play it, and then you don't even realize you're in the trap until you're screwed. And yeah, so I think Demeter would win every time. I think she'd always be the one that people would expect to lose, but she would definitely sweep the floor with Aphrodite.
I love that. No, yeah. Totally see that through to be like TBH. Like I love the Game of Thrones series, and no, I think what you're saying definitely correct. Of course, it's correct. You're the author, but no, yeah. So like speaking of like characters and even the side characters that have become like fan favorites, Hermes has become a fan favorite. Can you talk more about like the importance of side characters, or if you plan to do anything with them?
I I have this thing that's like no side character left behind. And so I do have plans for Hermes. Hermes is also my favorite. Um and it's just, she's one of those characters that because she's like trickster, uh
Yeah.
you kind of have to play it out over the course of, well, the entire series, honestly. I do have an end game in mind for her, and
Ooh.
I would say most of the main characters that you will fall for over the course of the series will get books, or at least
Ah.
stories told, if not like full-length books, because I just am incapable of leaving them behind. I'm like, no, we're going to tell your story now too.
No,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, as a reader, I love that because I'm with you, like no side characters left behind. Usually I'm the type of person that like I'm falling in love more with the side characters than even the main characters. They're great, but sometimes these side characters, they get to me. Like I'm like, ooh, I love you. But no, yeah, I can't wait to see if and when you'll do anything with the rest of these characters. You feel a beautiful world with these amazing characters. There's so much like potential and everything. So no, yeah, can't wait to see more of that for sure.
Hopefully I'll pull
um
it off.
no, yeah, how many books have you planned in the Dark Olympus series, just to
S-
give me an idea?
so there are so I planned it out initially because sometimes I feel like, because traditional publishing usually buys 3 books, you can
Hmm.
kind of see when an author planned a trilogy and then it did well, and there's like a lag of a book or two before they find their feet again.
Mm.
And I didn't want that. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to plan the whole thing and assume the best case scenario. And so 10 books is what I planned. So 7 are contracted. We'll see what happens. But if the series, should everything go best case scenario, will end at 10 books,
Awesome. No, yeah,
which is so long.
I think that's amazing. I will never get sick of this world or this series or this characters or anything. So now, like as a reader, I can speak for everyone here. Keep them coming. You know, I mean, don't even stop. Like, um, but no, yeah, like speaking of like, the characters, there's obviously like different like hierarchies and like stuff like that within the world that you've created, like Hades and Zeus, obviously. Um, while like other roles are more like appointed or elected, are there any other surprises or any other surprise ways to become a member of the 13?
There is. I don't think this is a spoiler. It's mentioned briefly in book 3. There's an assassination clause that not a
Oh,
ton of people know about. So like, it's not widely used because it's just bad business. But if you, aside from the legacy titles of Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus, if you were to assassinate one of the 13, you could immediately step into their place. I mean, you might not
right.
live very long afterwards, but it's a thing that exists because Olympus is weird, and that's like one of their little like bylaws.
No, yeah, that's super badass to be like I love that. Just like if you want the role, you gotta kill. Just like kill or be killed. You know how it is. Um, so like how did your work like bring something like more fresh into these myths? Like how does your like how did you make it your own, I guess, thing?
I think part of it is just that I mean, it's been leveled at me both as a compliment and as not a compliment, of that I'm basically writing fanfic of the Greek myths. And it kind of is not inaccurate because I'm taking like what I feel is the essence of these stories and throwing in Easter eggs so that people who like are aware of them can kind of get like a little bit extra out of the stories. But it's more just, I, like so many people that had Greek mythology phase, like I loved them, and it was always so upsetting to me in my little romance reader heart that like that they just end tragically all the time, and
Oh
like
yeah.
the worst people like just are fine, and they're just like, yes, I'm the best, like freaking Paris. Die mad about it, I will. um but and so I mean, Hades and Persephone and Eros and Psyche obviously are the more like happier Greek myths, but
Right.
after that it's basically me being like, F these myths, justice for whoever I decide that needs justice, in which case in the third one it's Helen, Achilles, and Patroclus, because they all deserve better, all 3 of them, and
Yeah.
I don't care if they didn't meet in like the Iliad, they deserve each other. And so each book is going to be more progressively like, no, that's stupid, we're not going to do it that way, we're going to do it my way, and with like the Katie Robert flair.
No, yeah, I absolutely love that. No, as soon as you announced like Wicked Beauty would be Patroclus, Achilles, and Helen, I was just like, no, yeah, like give it to me, because after reading Song of Achilles, I'm like, oh, okay, this is how it is, because like my like knowledge of like Greek myth doesn't really go outside of like, I don't know, Percy Jackson or any of Madeline Miller books and yours. And it's like when I read these books, it's so refreshing. Like, yes, these characters that I love, that I like, I've read in a million other stories, they're finally having their happy ending because they deserve that. So no, yeah, applause to that for sure.
Yeah, because it's just, and like I mean, the first I was introduced to like the Iliad, it was the movie Troy, like when I was in high school, and I was like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I mean, I love Orlando Bloom because like pirates, but like also that asshole got his super sweet brother killed, he freaking, everybody got murdered because of this dick bag, like screw him. And yeah, and like the whole, which I mean, they didn't obviously do Achilles and Patroclus right, but it's, I just, I write romance, not tragedy, so I'm gonna hopefully kind of hit that spot for people that enjoy the stories but would prefer them to like not end in horrible death.
Exactly. No, yeah, especially for like people that really like these character driven stories and stuff like that, to see these characters like go through everything and then, just have their peace and everything towards the end and they're happy. It's just it feels good. But like, since these books are more focused like with these characters and the romance between them and one another and themselves, what books got you into reading romance in the first place?
I fell into it on accident, actually. My mom was a big suspense reader, and so like I would
Mm,
just inherit her books. And Iris Johansson, she still writes suspense, but I had read her suspense book and I was like, wow, this is really great. I wonder what else she's read. And so I went to the library and all they had was these historical romances that she'd written. I was like, oh, sure, sounds good. I was like 14. And so I picked up her title called The Magnificent Rogue, which I actually reread a couple years ago because I was like, surely it wasn't as like saucy as like I found it at 14. Oh no, it is. It's scandalous. But so I like inhaled all of her historical romance series or like books, and then I kind of lost the thread for a little bit just because I didn't know how to find romance. Like it wasn't, I had nobody in my life. Like a lot of romance readers, it's like, oh, my family handed me a thing of Harlequins and I didn't have that. So I came back to it by way of paranormal romance, like probably like
oh,
5 or 6 years later. And that like fated mate. And like I think you can really see the influence in my writing because paranormal romance can be so bonkers when done like in the way I enjoy it. And so I take that bonkers and put it in contemporary romance. And it's like, no, just, it's fine. It's fine. We're just gonna go over the top every single time.
no, yeah,
And it creates like, a lot of fun scenarios, I think.
absolutely. No, yeah. Speaking from for all readers here again, we eat that shit up. We love it. So no, yeah, keep it coming. But no, yeah, like speaking of like your writing process, like around like was it as soon as you started reading romance that were like, I gotta write this myself? Or like how did that really come about in which you progressed from like a reader to like writing?
I had always, which I didn't realize it at the time because I like elder millennial. So like the internet existed when I was in junior high and we had a computer, but like I did not realize that fanfic was a thing. I was writing fanfic of like, I don't know, some werewolf thing at that age. But um but when I started writing, I actually started writing fantasy and then I wrote YA, and then I finally sort of again accidentally found romance in this like it'll never see the light of day. It's not going to be published, but there was this. I wrote a sci-fi fantasy where they were like fated mates of sorts, and that like they had to hook up, and if they didn't hook up, like he would have like withdrawal. It was just a mess, but a really great. Like it's great because like I see that kind of some of that element in some of the like alien romances out there now that I'm like, yes, I was ahead of the time. but but then I just sort of my favorite parts of stories were always the romantic elements. And so it's like, well, why not just write the stories that's like the main thing going on in there? Because that's my favorite part. And it just sort of, I fell into it from there and have not looked back.
No, yeah, I love that. No, so I kind of have like a sort of similar experience as a reader. Like, I don't plan to be a writer. I can't write. If you have read my like essays from high school, you'd be like, can she even read? But no, yeah, that's besides the point. Irrelevant. No, yeah, but like I like, I guess maybe even just like a year ago, I'd consider myself like a fantasy girly. But now I'm just like after reading like so much like contemporary romance and dark romance and this and that, I'm like, no, this is where it's at. Because like whatever book I was reading, I was always like hyper fixating on the romance in it. And I'd still be like, oh well, fantasy is my favorite genre because of blah 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 blah. But I'm like, wait, no, it's because of the romance that's within these genres. And I'm like, because romance is my favorite genre. So no, yeah,
I
I
think a
love that.
lot of people come by that way just because like fantasy is like a very natural progression that it's like, oh, here's this fantasy book, especially if you like start in YA.
Right.
But it could, and because YA tends to have a lot of romantic elements in a lot of those books. And so it's just kind of, but it always, I don't know, it took me longer than is pretty to like realize like, oh wait, I do like romance. Like this is nice. This is exactly what I like.
No, yeah, absolutely. But like speaking of like, romance and like usually a lot of romance has like specific tropes. What are your favorite tropes or even your least favorite tropes to read and or to write about?
So I think it would surprise no one that I love marriage of convenience and fake dating and enemies to lovers. Like if there's a knife at a throat, I am there for it. Um,
Absolutely.
I don't I don't super love friends to lovers, and I say that, and yet some of my like Talia Hibbert, when she writes friends to lovers, I'm like, yeah, no, it seems legit, love this. But as a general whole, I have a real hard time writing it, just because it's like, because I introduce sex so early in my stories for the most part. And so it's like, if they're already having sex and they are already friends and they already care about each other, like, why can't they be together? And that's something I struggle with, like, as a writer. So I just don't write it that often. Um, but yeah, if it's like over the top, like kidnapping as a love language, I'm here for it. I don't ask questions, they
Yeah.
have reasons. um so like that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm absolute garbage for Marriage of Convenience and absolute garbage for Enemies to Lovers, and if those two are combined, like, I will buy that book, I won't even look.
No, yeah. Literally, we're the same person, Katie, because like yes, I respect the enemies or like the friends to lovers like trope and genre. It's fun, it's cute. But like when books that get me feral or stuff with like lots of angst, lots of like knives and the more darker elements. And no, yeah, literally kidnapping as a love language isn't good. No, that's literally my thought process because I'm just like, no, yeah, sometimes like a year ago I would have been like, is this what I really like? Like, is this who I am? But now I'm just like, no apologies necessary. Like, I'm here for it all the way.
Well, I think like, because I don't read a ton of contemporary romance, because I find that
Mhm.
I read for pure escapism. So like if it's dark romance, I'm like, well,
Likewise.
this isn't real world. I can be down with them doing all sorts of like unforgivable things because it's fiction. It's fine.
Right.
Um, but like with like actual contemporary romance, I have more of a hard time with some of the like just really traditional tropes. It's like the nice guy, I'm like, he's not nice. He's not nice at all. I would never hang out with him in real life. Whereas there's a literal murderer and I'm like, you should marry him. He seems like a good guy. He'll
No,
protect you.
literally. Yeah. Cough, cough, electric idol, marriage of convenience, like, bad guy, but like, yeah, it's right here. But no, yeah, I absolutely love that. I'll get more into like rapid fire questions now, but if audience wanted to leave questions in the comments, go for it and like spit them out right now. And then, after these questions, I'll get into them. But no, yeah. So to start off, what's your favorite myth?
Ooh, it's Medusa. It's Medusa in like the way that I've rewritten in my head, that she like
Mm,
traipses off to like be left the fuck alone and like does not get murdered by Perseus. But I just love that whole, like, she's just minding her business, wants to be left alone, and these people keep showing up, and so she just kills them. And like, same. Like,
no,
so I'm
yeah,
not
super
saying literally, but
badass.
you know what I mean? Like, but like, I understand that. Like, of course, like, stop showing up in my house, I'll turn you to stone. Um, yeah, no, like, my love for Medusa has grown like over the years, and like, I don't think I even tracked her when I was in high school, but now I'm like, I love her so much.
No, yeah, I love that too. No, yeah, I'd say like Medusa's probably my favorite myth as well. Um, do you plan to like bring her into the
Actually,
dark Olympus
I
sphere?
do. I have a Medusa Calypso novella coming out. Actually, I don't know, I'm looking at my watch. March
Please.
1st. It's gonna be free. It's like a novella, like a sapphic, and it's just Odysseus slander. Um, and yeah, so I had a chance to, like, an offer to write a Dark Olympus novella, and I was like, I want to write Medusa, and it happens before the events of Neon Gods.
Mhm.
Um, and just kind of like leads into an introduction because they cross the river Styx. But it's yeah, I justice for Medusa.
No, literally, I can't wait to read that. As soon as you said sapphic, I'm like, no, yeah, immediately want it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite villain?
Oh, yes. Okay. So like, if TV villain, Hannibal, specifically TV Hannibal, specifically Mads Hannibal, like, he scares me a whole lot, but also like I feel things. Um my favorite book villain is imprinted on me in like high school. It's Melisande, however you say
Mm.
her name, from Cutile's Dart by Jacqueline Carey. She
Ooh.
is the most gorgeous, lovely, vindictive, like manipulative, plotting villain. Like, I've yet to meet another, or like encounter another villain that's quite as like brilliant and like ahead of the game as she is in that series. And she's just my heart.
Aw, I love that. No, yeah. Like to wrap this all up, this is question just like you personally. Coffee, tea, hot chocolate, or wine?
Coffee, black. No sweetener.
Ooh.
Just yeah, I don't like sweet hot stuff, but I drink too much coffee, but just black coffee.
Oh no, that's super badass because I'm like the opposite. I'm like, I need it to be like the color of my skin and have like a pound of sugar in there.
That's how I
That's just me.
started, but it just slowly over the
Is it like
years. Yeah.
mature, like when your taste buds mature or something, like you're like, yeah.
I think or something happened that I was like counting calories or something. I was like, well, I need my coffee, so I'll drink it black. And then I just got in the habit of it and now I can't go back.
I'll have to try it out. Thank you so much, Katie, for answering all these questions. I'll scroll through the chat if there is any questions from the audience. My nearsight vision is not that great, but I'll look through. Okay. What have you been reading lately? Oh, that's cute.
Okay, so right now I am doing Blast from my Past. In like when I was first started reading like paranormal romance, there was several or two specific authors that like kind of blew my mind that I was like, I didn't know you could do that. And one of them was Shelley Lawrenston in the Magnus Pack series, and she just re-released it. It was out of print for a while, and it's now in KU. And so I'm rereading the first book, which it's like some of the stuff doesn't age super well because it's older, but it is just bonkers. It's got great lady friendships. It's like it's really hot and just like her, the way that she writes women specifically is so over the top that I was like, I love her so much, would die for her. And so like I'm rereading that, and then I just read the Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen. It
Mm.
comes out in July, maybe. It's a YA fantasy that's like childhood friends to enemies to like maybe something more complicated and like big fairy tale vibes. And the heroine is just like prickly and ambitious and like F everybody else, I'm out for myself. And I love that in a heroine. So I'm really excited for everybody to read that book because it's was so intensely enjoyable.
No, yeah. I love this next question. It's like so consent is really big, like a big element in your books, which I really loved reading that, especially like in Neon Gods, because I think it's so attractive, just like the bare minimum, literally.
Yeah.
But um, and it seems like it's become more like of a focus as this the this is the reader saying it,
Yeah.
as they've been like reading your books. Was that a conscious decision or did it evolve along with the spicier storylines you started to write?
Um, a little bit of both, because like romance is one of the good things about like the romance community in general is that it seems to be kind of cutting edge on some of these conversations about like I remember, god, it might have been 10 years ago now when we were first talking about like it should we be putting condoms in these books, like how do we do that that's sexy. And more recently, like, and not recently but like recently-ish, is like consent and like how do we put consent. And like there are books where like there are books of mine where consent is less explicit, and that's by intention and it is marked as such. But like in the Olympus, it's just I have a lot of fun kind of seeing all the ways that consent can be really sexy, and like having these like conversations where it's like, no, you're going to tell me what you want. And in and it's like really soft with Hades and Persephone because he's, you know, soft as shit, and like slightly less soft with Eros and Psyche. And there are books later on where it's going to be like more humiliation kink, like, no, you're going to tell me and I'm not going to give it to you unless you do. And it's just all the different shades of like still giving explicit consent while making it like a kind of like almost foreplay. And like I have fun with that, and like how can I make this as sexy as possible. And it's like a kind of a personal challenge for me, and so that's why you see it a lot more often, is because I enjoy playing with those elements of like leaning into the saucy scenes.
No, literally. And as a reader, I love reading it, especially like as you said, it's like sort of like a kink or something. It's like and it's like reoccurring. And I loved reading that, like especially like in Neon Gods and everything. Like, oh, it's like every single time. It's amazing. I love it. Um, but so this is from Selena. Hey Katie. So quick question. Are you okay between the new books, the Patreon shorts, and the Kickstarter? Holy shit, you work so hard. So are we okay? Is the question.
Well, I will say there's a reason why at the end of last year I like canceled a bunch of pre-orders, and like
Mhm.
several series are temporarily off the schedule for now. Because I like was like careening towards burnout and like took it on two wheels. Like I'm working at half my normal pace right now, and so I'm doing okay, but it just means there's going to be slightly, like, the Sabine Valley series is temporarily shelved, and the Scandalous Scions, wow, words again are cool, series is like, I'm sort of working on it, but it's not technically on the schedule. So like, you're just might have to wait a little bit longer for some books that are coming, but yeah, Cohen will be coming. I promise it's coming. It's just temporary off the schedule because those books are so, I can apparently only have capacity for like one really complicated series at a time. And right now it's Dark Olympus because that's contracted. And I just made a slight miscalculation with Sabine Valley because it's all overlapping timelines and all triads, and like it's a lot. So Cohen will be coming. It's just not this year.
Gotcha. Oh, that's really cool. So this question, oh, sorry, I almost scrolled up. The art for Dark Olympus, will you ever sell it separately or only for pre-orders?
It's so like how the art's contracted with the artist is that it's for a very specific purpose, and as such I can't really sell it because I don't legally own the copyright to it. I don't know if she'll ever do merch for it. We haven't really talked about it, but like if she wanted to, I'd be super cool with that because or selling her art version of it. I don't really know how that works. It's a but like I said, not great at details, but I'm not allowed to sell the art, and so that's why it's like a giveaway with the pre-orders. At some point I'll probably collect them and do like a mass giveaway or something because I do have some in stock like that I've kept. But yeah, it won't be for sale. So, but hopefully at some point there'll be a way for like people to get a hold of it if they missed the pre-order the first time around.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, that is all the questions from the audience and all the questions from me. Katee, it was so nice talking to you, and like shout out to all the audience members for being here and listening to us. I'm absolutely devouring Electric Idol, and I know everyone here will too. Like, this is where it's at. You guys are gonna love it. I know you will. But no, yeah, I'll hand it. Oh, any BL planned in the future?
Yes, actually. I just some things happened in book 4 which I will not just talk about because it's a spoiler, but I had to shift and restructure a little bit of the rest of the series, and as a result I was looking at Poseidon and I was like, I had initially planned on him being with Andromeda, and I was like, that doesn't really make sense, and I was like, oh, Icarus. So yes, there will be Poseidon, and Icarus will be much later in the series, but it is coming, and that's a thing that'll happen.
Yay, can't wait for it. All right, I'll hand it over to Auntie's Events.
Thanks so much for coming, everybody. I just put Ayman's social media in the chat, and you can visit these next 2 links to get your copy of Electric Idol or any of the next books in the Dark Olympus series. I know that there are 2 up on the website available for pre-order now.
Oh, that's so new.
Thanks so much for coming, everybody, and thank you, Katee. We'll see y'all soon.
All right, thank you guys.
Bye, everyone.